In 1983, the Rotary Club of Taradale was planning celebrations for its 25th Jubilee year. It needed a major project to mark the event. In June 1983, just prior to changeover, the Community Service Committee, chaired by Bill Love, proposed the idea of building 2 flats at the Atawhai Retirement Village. The idea was first suggested by the late Ben Edgington and was enthusiastically supported by all club members. On July the 12th, 1983, Ron Schofield, a plumber and now chairman of Community Services, called a meeting to set up a building committee. This comprised of Ron Schofield as chairman and plumber, Ken Jobson, businessman, Ian Kepka, builder, Ben Edgington, builder, Bill Love, director, Ted Scudder, plumber, Jim Dine, electrician, and Dave Wrench, bricklayer. By August 1983, architects were drawing up the plans, and by the end of the year, all legal consents were in place. The flats were to be built on behalf of the Presbyterian Support Services Association, and they would assume ownership of the buildings on their completion. In January 1984, the site was cleared and building commenced. Today, we have members who remember working on the project 25 years ago, and they are gathered outside the flats 25 years on.
I was president for the 25th anniversary of the club, and this was a project that was going to be our main project for the celebration for the 25th year. And we had the first meeting to establish this at Ron Schofield's on the 12th of July, where a committee was formed to organise and control the building of the flats.
And who coordinated the whole thing?
Well, it was split with a committee. Ken Jobson, he handled the dealings with the PSSA, and the other members, they were on this building committee. The chairman was Ron Schofield, and there's Ken Jobson, Ian Kepka, Ben Edgington, Bill Lowe, Ted Scudder, Jim Dine, and David Wrench.
First of all, I'd just like to tell you that the way the Atawhai operates, they provide accommodation units in the form of residences such as these flats, also apartments, and also they provide hospital beds. What the incoming residents do, they purchase the unit at the value of the unit. They don't actually purchase the unit, they purchase a license to occupy the unit. When we first talked about this at our meetings, we tried to establish that people that couldn't quite afford the license to occupy fee in full would have the chance to enter one of these units, because they would be subsidised by the Rotary Club, who actually put in a lot of time and money. To think that 2/3 of a cost of a unit is consumed by wages, the other third is materials. So a big contribution from us came into this.
As president that year, did you have contact with the PSSA, Callum Kirkpatrick, at all?
I didn't personally, but Ken Jobson, he and the committee, they handled all that.
Ben Edgington, who proposed the thing when we discussed it, why don't we build 2 of these units, and therefore they could be let to these people that can't quite afford the full license to occupy fee on a reduced license fee. And it was all agreed that this would be a very good idea, and we approached PSSA, and they thought it was very good that we offered this, and they were all behind it. And subsequently a building committee was formed, and Ben Edgington, being a builder who built mainly flats on spec, it was just ideal for him, because he knew that the way to handle this sort of a project. And he said, with the amount of people in the club we've got that are associated with the building industry, we should have no problems.
So Bill, as you mentioned, the club contributed $8,000, which was a lot of money in those days, of course. Where did that come from?
Most of that, or all of it, came from the auctions we used to run on a yearly basis. And also we had $1,000 from the Inner Wheel Club and the old Truiser Club. They paid $1,000 as well towards the costing.
Ron Schofield, who was involved in this very, very deeply, he was partly retired, and it became his hobby actually to work on. He used to come during the week and work and get everything ready so a team on the weekends could come and assist and the flats would carry on.
Nora, lovely to have you here this morning. Ron, of course, was chairman of the committee that ran this building project. How did Ron handle it? Was he pretty stressed about it, or?
I can't remember him being stressed, but one of my best memories is every Friday evening, Ron would ring up Ben and they'd say, we need so many painters and we need so many labourers. Well, we won't ask him to do the painting, and they'd work out a roster of people to ring up to come and work at the weekends. And he and Ben knew what everybody's strengths were, and our Sunday afternoons outings were to come round and clean up the mess and see what had been done.
Now, just to mention some names that were involved in the building industry that were also club members. There were Ben Edgington Building, Ian Kepka, Arthur Stafford, and Ken Jobson, Bill Love. There was 5 that had building associations. Then we had David Nicol, who had glass and aluminium, Jim Gordon, aluminium, Brian Wright, aluminium, Jim Dine, electrical, Carl Simon, electrical, Ian Norrie, joinery, David Range, bricklaying, Ted Scudder, plumbing, Pat Geddes, plumbing, Ron Schofield, plumbing, Jack Lockyer, fibrous plasterer, John Skilton, a painter, Chris Balbuth, welding, Stuart Lothian, Venetian blinds, Win Ginty, furniture maker, and Ken Carson, he could just about do anything. So we had a team that could handle this. So from then on it was just quite a few happy weekends where work progressed very smoothly, and within the 12 months we were virtually completed.
We're here this morning at Atawhai Retirement Village with the class of 1984. At that time, 25 years ago, there were 77 top-class labourers and a team of excellent professionals that put these 2 buildings together. Following the formation of the Building Committee in July 1983 and the establishment of a working relationship with the PSSA, the original plans were drawn up and the site surveyed. With the legal work in place, work started in January 1984 with site clearing. By mid-February, boxing was in place and concrete was poured for the floors of the houses and their garages. This required a team effort, and members were starting to thoroughly enjoy the experience of working with a professional builder like Ben Edgington. A sense of camaraderie was developing as members sensed that a very special project was evolving. For most, this was not their normal work environment, so the chance to apply their Kiwi do-it-yourself attitude was embraced with relish. After a period to allow the concrete to set, framing started in March. The late summer of 1984 was fine and dry, and work progressed quickly.
But his sites, I worked for him for 20 years, and his sites were always lovely and clean and tidy.
I remember it rather well because I think Norman arrived about the time we were going to have a cup of tea. He got up on the top there on the framing, and then he promptly got down and had a cup of tea.
The roof was a major job. Ron and I cut the roof out and on the paddock over there using a skill saw without earmuffs, and that's why I'm wearing these today, I guess.
Oh, good. By late April, the roofs were up, and by late May, the members celebrated with a wetting of the roof to mark the end of the first stage of a very successful project.
But getting back to the morning teas, I think some of them, that's what they came along for. Leslie Nilsson was the matron of the home, and they'd send over this beautiful hot scones and pikelets about mid-morning every
That's when the
Saturday.
fight started, wasn't it?
That's dead right.
The Clendon Border digger who lay the cable, and head scudder said, while the digger's here, will you dig the drains? So he not only did the electrical, he also helped out Ted by digging the trenches for the drains.
By late June, the brickwork started and Dave Wrench had a team ready to go.
And we got there on the first day and he said, I'm going to start here. And both of us being Freemasons, I said, no, David, you've got to start at the northeast corner. So we went round the other side of the building, put one block there, and then we came back and actually worked on the job. And over the several weeks that we were working together, a great sense of humour, a lovely man.
I was rung in near the end to paint the trellis, and I did this with a will apparently, and when I got home I found that I'd got more paint on my clothes than I had on the trellis.
No injuries as far as I know. I was only here on a labour basis, you know, all the time, but I was interested to see, I've got a photo here of digging a hole for a tree and I've just come to see if it grew. I actually can't find it.
I found that you had to be told and do as you're told.
If you look through the photographs, you see an awful lot of people standing around. And my one is Ron, is Mark Reed and me leaning on shovels while Derek Ricketts actually digs the hole.
I was amazed that 77 people who are labourers and had no real skills in the building trade could be so effectively put to work and constructively so. And the results were amazing.
We all learnt so many things. We never knew what dwangs were, for instance, and Ben, he was very patient with us.
By the end of 1984, the major work of Stage 2 was finished. Smaller groups worked inside, helping with plastering and painting. Into early 1985, the finishing work accelerated, as the opening day was set for the 17th of March, timed to coincide with the district conference being held in Napier. The plumbers worked to connect water to the properties, leaving the last work to the electricians who needed to connect the light fittings.
I had not only Clendon but Kyle Simons and our 92-year-old George Metcalf. I was on the building committee and made responsible for the electrics, and what we set out to do was for Clendon and I to share it. When the flats were wired, Clendon did one and I did the other.
No, I remember on the day we actually wired them, Jim wired one and I wired the other, and it was a sort of a
competition.
It was a race, yeah. It was never mentioned in words, but it was a race without a doubt. And I'd say that I can't remember who won, Jim. How's that?
I actually finished the job the day before the opening.
The flats were finished just one day before the opening, 15 months after the first sod was turned on the site. This was a remarkable effort by a small team of trade professionals leading an enthusiastic team of volunteers, all done free of charge and in their spare time. The 17th of March 1985 was the big day. It was the commissioning, the opening of the two Atawhai flats that were built by Taradale Rotary Club.
I actually chaired that function, and at that time we had the Rotary Conference in Napier with the Rotary International's World President's personal representative from New Jersey, USA, Ray Wells, and his wife Betty, and other dignitaries here on that particular occasion.
Bill Sutton also?
Dr. Bill Sutton was our MP at the time. He spoke. Tom MacDonald did the official opening.
Members of the PSSA?
Yes, Callum Kirkpatrick and other representatives from the Presbyterian Support Services Association.
The function, the official words and all that after that, was there an afternoon tea or what? Duncan Jamison was in the club at that time?
Duncan Jamison,
that day?
yes, he gave a blessing and that went off well too. It was a team, once again a team effort, but I enjoyed being part of it, and as Bill has just said, it was the culmination of Rotary Conference. It was to Ron Schofield was awarded the Paul Harris Fellowship, which was the highest award you can receive in Rotary, of course, and it just blew Ron away. He was speechless. A great thrill for him.
It'd be a great moment indeed.
It was. Well, it must have been well constructed because they're both still standing.
Plumbing's still working, wiring's still going, and everything else is all right. It was a good job.
It was a great job. Great
Proud moment for the club.
A very proud moment. I'm not sure how far we'd go today if we tried it again, but
it's a good little unit.
Good. You've been there for the last 4 years?
Yes.
It's comfortable?
Yes,
good
it is.
Still?
Yes, I didn't realise until I looked at those photos that it had bats in the ceiling.
Everything's there, dear. Yeah. It's good plumbing, it's good block laying, it's good wiring, promise you.
Yes, I was very interested in it because my late husband was a builder, and I was interested in all the different stages that you were going through. So it was really good.
Well, there was a big crowd of us that day. It was just Smoko, and we were sitting in a large group there. And of course, with KR being there, the conversation lent to rugby, and they're all talking about rugby. And I joined in the conversation, to which Dave Wrench leaned across and says, "And what the hell do you think you know about rugby?" And I said, "Oh, well, I might not know much, but I have slept with somebody that knows a lot." And of course everybody roared with laughter, and then a few minutes later Dave Wrench goes quick as a flash, he says, "Well, I hope you scored."
25 years after the Atawhai Rotary plates were commissioned, this project is still spoken about with nostalgia by the 32 members still in the club and whom remember working on the project. In the club's 50 years of history, there has never been a project of short duration which gave all members the opportunity to work together and produce something that has been so enduring and of great benefit to the community. The project epitomises the synergy of Rotary and the community, and it is something the club remains very proud of.